Welcome everyone to another SBSN podcast. Today we're covering To Kill a Mockingbird. This will be our first podcast. Today's title is The Children of the Depression. I don't want to call it the Great Depression. I feel that's somewhat offensive. Nothing great about it. Maybe awful would be better. To Kill a Mockingbird is a commonly studied novel in high schools, usually around grade 10. Its main characters are the Finches. Two children have leading roles. They are Jem and Scout Finch. The setting is the Depression of the 1930s. Jem and Scout Finch appear entirely unaffected by the awful depression of the 30s. How is that possible? How did Atticus raise such resilient children? Before we answer that question, let's examine the evidence that the author actually set her story during the horrible decade. Let's start with a couple quotations. Sasha, could you start us off with quotation one?
I'm just pulling it up here, so maybe I'll do the second one instead.
Okay. Ryan, are you ready for quotation one?
Okay. It says time and space. People moved slowly then. They ambled across the square, shuffled in and out of the stores around it, took their time about everything. The day was 24 hours long, but seemed longer. There was no hurry, for there was nowhere to go, nothing to buy and no money to buy with, nothing to see outside the boundaries of Macomb County.
Yeah. Does it sound like it was an awful place to be, an awful time to be?
They set it up like that.
Yeah. Well, everyone seems to be living.
Everyone seems to be living, indeed. If a day feels longer than 24 hours, is that necessarily bad?
Well,
I think people,
No.
I think a lot of people say my day went by so quickly, and it's like in a negative context. So if your day goes by slower and you're like able to be more productive in a longer period of time, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, if you're bored to death, of course, things might feel long and not so pleasant. But yeah, generally my experiences too, people complain about time flying. So a long day with no work sounds pretty good to me. There was no hurry, for there was nowhere to go. Nothing to buy and no money to buy it with, nothing to see outside the boundaries of Macomb County. So people are not traveling. They had vehicles in those days and of course horses, but there was no purpose in going anywhere. The world shrinks as it has shrunk very much presently for a lot of people. I don't know how many billions are presently in lockdown, but their world has just shrunk to the size of their home. And I don't know how fast time is going for them. Probably going painfully slow, too slow. Feel free to disagree and jump in whenever you like. Next quotation, Sasha?
Sure. Rising food prices, more poverty. My special knowledge of the Cunningham tribe, one branch that is, was gained from events of last winter. Walter's father was one of Atticus's clients. After a dreary conversation in our living room one night about his entailment, before Mr. Cunningham left, he said, "Mr. Finch, I don't know when I'll ever be able to pay you." "Let that be the least of your worries, Walter," Atticus said. When I asked Jem what entailment was, and Jem described it as a condition of having your tail in a crack, I asked Atticus if Mr. Cunningham would ever pay us. "Not in money," Atticus said, "but before the year's out, I'll have been paid. You watch." We watched. One morning, Jem and I found a load of stovewood in the backyard. Later, a sack of hickory nuts appeared on the back steps. With Christmas came a crate of smilax and holly. That spring, we found a croaker sack full of turnip greens. Atticus said Mr. Cunningham had more than paid him. "Why does he pay you like that?" I asked. "Because that's the only way he can pay me. He has no money."
Wow. What do you think, Ryan? Are we there now? Or will we
yeah.
come? Are we there?
Well, in some places, yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I read an article about how in some places in China, how the society was just so broken down, everyone was forced to stay in their homes, so they just had to barter with each other in the neighborhood or building.
Wow. And if you're in a city, can you barter with people for food?
Well, that's going to be a lot of people.
Yeah, where does the food come from? It doesn't come from cities.
Farms.
Right. And if you're in lockdown, I don't know, maybe this food does come to the stores. Some people are expecting some trouble with food deliveries here, food production. Mr. Cunningham has no money. He pays by bartering, and lawyers usually charge a whole lot of money. So Atticus is trying to defend, I think, the Cunninghams from a claim made by the bank on their land. They're in danger of losing their property and their source of survival. Do you think Mr. Cunningham paid enough considering lawyers' fees?
No.
Probably not, but what do you think, Such?
I don't know. I guess technically no, if you compare it in money, but what is even money worth? I mean, we just put that worth to money. So in reality, if everything that Mr. Cunningham is putting up for giving to Atticus, I mean, if it helped Atticus's family, everything that they gave, I don't know, maybe it could have been considered equal.
Yeah, perhaps. By the way, this just came to my mind. At the same time, there was the Great Dust Bowl, huge farming catastrophes, fall in food production. There isn't much written about it because I think it was heavily censored at the time. Food prices could have been very high.
Mm-hmm.
So food might have been very valuable, especially to a man who has to feed 2 children and the woman who works for him, Calpurnia.
And they take in that other boy too for a bit. I don't know if he lives with them. I can't remember the.
Correct. Yeah, Bill seems to have been there for quite a while. Was it just that one summer, or was it repeating summers?
I think repeating.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bill a bit later. Okay, final quotation. Ryan, you got it?
Oh, yeah. It says, now let's look at how Atticus raises and relates to his children. We lived on the main residential street in town. Atticus, Jem, and I, plus Calpurnia, our cook. Jem and I found our father satisfactory. He played with us, read to us, and treated us with courteous detachment. Calpurnia was something else again. She was all angles and bones. She was nearsighted. She squinted. Her hand was wide as a bed slab and twice as hard. She was always ordering me out of the kitchen, asking me why I couldn't behave as well as Jem when she knew he was older, and calling me home when I wasn't ready to come.
Okay, I think this is very clearly a contrast of characters. Atticus is so unlike Calpurnia. Anyone want to comment on this or on either of those characters?
Well, Calpurnia is from a different religion and race than Atticus and his family, so maybe their ways of educating or treating children is different.
That's always possible, yeah. What do you think, Sasha?
I think Atticus is just generally a lot easier and open-minded to the kids, and like even like when she says over here, she's saying and calling me home when I wasn't ready to come. I have a feeling if Atticus knew she was out doing something healthy, I don't know, like playing outside or something like that, I have a feeling Atticus wouldn't even bother calling her home and rushing her home, just because I think he promotes that kind of like youthful and like fun lifestyle for his kids, and that's what he wants.
Yeah, different mindsets.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Maybe they have different mindsets.
Hmm.
Very much contrasting or opposite. He's a lawyer, and yet we see that he played with them. This is, I think, quite rare. I'm not trying to stereotype lawyers, but yeah, especially those kids, they're not babies anymore to play with. Anyway, courteous detachment, almost like he's treating them like adults. That curious detail in that quotation about Calpurnia, her hand was wide as a bed slat and twice as hard.
She hits them.
Yeah, it looks that way. That seems a bit ironic to me.
And Atticus allows Calpurnia hitting his children.
Right, disciplining, we might use the polite word. Why else is this ironic?
Atticus is in the middle of a case for assault. Different kind of assault, but his children are still being treated
True.
differently than I think that Atticus would be treating them.
I'm sure Atticus is aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Probably, what's the word? Supports it. I think there's a better word. Also, when we reflect on it in terms of race, it's a bit ironic. It's the black lady watching the white kids, and she's disciplining them, whipping them.
Hmm. Normally, I feel like they're portrayed in movies, like the maids or the people who are taking care of their homes, is they kind of stay out of that.
Right.
They will not hit the white child. They honestly, sometimes they're not even supposed to be touching them, other than like putting them to bed, waking them up, feeding them. But other than that, like, they're told to stay away.
Yeah, I'm sure most of their white employers would have fired them immediately.
Yeah, especially with this is like it's set in 1933 to 35. That's when they were like enforcing all the laws for racial segregation. So they're allowed to promote that, like not allowing their workers to touch their children and all those.
Or even be in the same house.
Yeah.
Ryan?
Yeah, Sausages basically covered everything.
Okay. How does this, I think now that I reflect on this, this also connects to my opening remark. How did the children survive the Great Depression so well? Not only the Great Depression, but Calpurnia. So,
well, Calpurnia wasn't exactly like downright evil, right? She still like fed them. Yeah, still.
I agree. I was somewhat joking. I'm suggesting that they were doing something right. Somehow those children grew up quite strong, resilient. What's the one thing that has traumatized and bothered Jem?
Didn't Jem have an injury?
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't bother him. It's the opening line says, as long as he could punt and pass a football, he was happy. Anything else? The other parent. Hint.
Oh, his mother?
What happened to his mother?
Didn't she die?
Yeah, and he's still troubled by that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the only thing that he hasn't overcome, I guess, and maybe that's a natural thing. Oh, all right. Let's go to our first topic, or our next topic. Technology. Atticus appears to have neither a television nor a radio in his house, not even a bicycle for the children. Why? What do the children do instead? What is the author's message? You want to start with that, Ryan? So,
instead of watching television or playing or doing other stuff, they go outside and mostly spend their time outside and play act and explore new things.
Right, they make a little bit of trouble, nothing too serious.
Yeah.
Stuff kids do normally.
Spy on neighbors.
Right. What is the author's message, do you think?
It's promoting creativity and that we're capable of spending our time ourselves using our own minds and bodies, and especially like they're in the Great Depression, you think like like they would be not motivated to do anything, they just want to stay at home, but especially Atticus, like he's promoting a different kind of lifestyle. He wants his kids outside, he wants them to be creative. They make those skits that they do, and
Yeah.
playing football.
Life is going on as if everything's normal for them, and as often happens with young children, they hardly notice what's going on. Yeah, I guess his message is, let children be creative. They can entertain themselves. We should all be able to entertain ourselves, have some kind of creative skill. I believe Ryan is a bit of an artist.
A little bit.
Yeah, and Sasha's a bit of a musician, maybe an artist too. Anyway, it's all good stuff. Next point, Walter Cunningham. How did Atticus treat Walter Cunningham when he stayed for dinner?
Treated like an equal. He spoke to him in an adult way.
Precisely. Spoke about what?
Farming.
Farming.
And a little bit of economic, maybe economy, about the economy.
Right. Why did he speak about farming?
That was his main form of work.
Whose main form?
Well, they mostly got involved in farming, right?
Are you talking about the Cunninghams or the Finches?
The Cunninghams. Wait. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Cunninghams.
You're right. Yeah, they're a farming family. So I find that's a nice or ironic contrast to what was happening in the school. Do you recall that little story that the teacher read?
Yeah.
What was it about?
Cats.
What were they eating around a table?
Chocolate mice.
Chocolate mice. Yeah. What were the children supposed to learn from that? They're all in a farming community.
Nothing.
Yeah, maybe they can't afford chocolate. I also think maybe the chocolate symbolizes something. Here we have the cats eating the chocolate mice. Do you ever read Mouse before? Mouse 1 and 2?
Yeah, Holocaust.
Uh-huh. There's a trigger, any connection? Cats eating black mice?
Oh, racism.
Yeah, this is racism. This is the privileged white class sitting around a table eating or devouring the energy, time, and health of black people through slavery, exploitation, capitalism. Could interpret it that way.
People who owned farms at that time, like maybe the Cunninghams, I'm not sure because they didn't have as much money, I guess, but like typically their main workers, the people who were picking all their produce, crops, yeah, were probably African American.
Probably were. Okay, number 3, is Atticus monitoring or controlling? We briefly touched on this, and then we can discuss how the world has changed for children nowadays. You want to start that one, Ryan?
How the world has changed for children?
Yeah, and whether Atticus is too controlling or controlling at all. Does he monitor and worry about where they go?
No, not really. He's just like, he doesn't monitor them that much, but still like kind of keeps them safe, and at the same time allows them to explore and mess around. So yeah.
I think they had a limit to how far they could go. They had 2 blocks in every direction, I think, from the house.
Yeah.
It was kind of reasonable. Has the world changed since then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up at a time when I could well, I wasn't too young when I was able just to walk around, but I walked to school at the age of 7. It was probably a 15-minute walk. Don't see that happening nowadays anymore.
Yeah, parents
Nope.
are a lot more controlling now and just
Yeah.
worried. Like they're controlling for a reason. Like they're scared of what's out there, but in reality, like it changed a lot. Society changed a lot. How parents will treat their kids and how like the boundaries that they'll give their kids and everything.
Absolutely.
Like you said, you were 7 years old walking to school. That's like a first or second grader. I don't think I would ever see a first grader walking to school alone anymore.
Right. Yeah. It may have been 2nd or 3rd grade, but
Even then, like I don't think I see up to like maybe like a 5th grader walking.
right.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how my brother got to school. I don't remember walking beside him. He was 1 year younger. But I probably maybe we went together, probably. Ryan, what's your experience growing up in Canada?
I only started walking to school in grade 6. That was because it was my school was a lot closer to my house, so it was like 5-minute walk, so that was fine. But yeah, usually from what I saw from other kids, they usually had a parent beside them or they were driven to school. They weren't allowed to go by themselves.
Yeah, now I see it happening in high school too. A whole fleet of mothers and fathers coming with their vehicles. Yeah, there's the fear factor. What are they afraid of? Stranger danger? What are they afraid of?
I think it is the stranger part, but it's the stranger part is like, I don't think there's any more strangers outside today than there was back then. In fact, more people stay at home nowadays. People aren't out walking, but I guess it's just how media will blow up big events like an abduction or something, and then that just adds on to the fear factor of like what is out there out on the streets.
Yeah, media generated paranoia about stranger danger. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, it's most of the media. They make everything seem so horrible or scary that most adults are too scared to let their children be free.
Yeah. On this note, I can't help but make the connection to the corona drama we have. That's the media drumming up fear of a germ, people hiding inside and covering themselves. And by the way, the media isn't portrayed very much in this novel, but it is strongly hinted at by the title, Mockingbird. I think Ryan might know about Operation Mockingbird.
Pardon?
Have either of you heard of Operation Mockingbird?
No.
Sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a CIA project operation to infiltrate, corrupt the media so that it basically became a propaganda machine. They rooted out all the free-thinking people and critical thinking people. And according to some sources, that has continued to this day. The CIA's influence over the US media, and perhaps beyond the US, is rather disturbing, let us say. So it actually refers to let's kill the CIA manipulated media, that Mockingbird.
And like the inflation of coronavirus's information that they're providing on the news, that's going to change society too now. Like just how society's changed with how parents will treat children just over the fear of what's out there. Now it's going to change society with their opinion on just other people and strangers more. So I think more families are going to be affected by like being scared of being near other people. There's going to be way more germaphobes now, like the actual mental illness of being scared of just germs in general. It's going to change mental health a lot for others. It's
not healthy, absolutely, yeah. Next topic, perhaps. School. What is Scout's relationship to her state-funded and state-controlled education?
She doesn't like it.
Yeah, blunt and accurate. She verbalizes some complaints. She doesn't just get frustrated and have a hissy fit. She talks about what's going on. What is her, I don't remember it so clearly, but perhaps you can elaborate, Ryan.
She tells her father what's going on and she says she doesn't want to go back because I think she said it was boring and useless.
Are you sure? Sasha, do you recall similar words?
I mean, I recall her speaking negatively on it, but I don't remember her, I couldn't tell a quotation.
Oh, now I remember. She complained that her teacher had said that Atticus should stop teaching her.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was important.
Right, and then she replied, Atticus is too busy to teach. He's got 2 jobs, actually, to survive. So she's just been teaching herself, picking up books. She probably got basic literacy and then just started reading.
Mm-hmm.
The teachers are scared of her teaching herself something that they don't want being taught in the education system, probably.
That's doubtlessly true, yeah. She's picking up lawyers, magazines, and so on. But I think the teachers claim, what was her name? Miss Stephanie or, no, that wasn't.
Caroline?
Pardon?
Miss Caroline.
Miss Caroline, yes. She was concerned that some students would be ahead of other students, and then it wouldn't be a grade 1 class. It would be a mixed class, and she couldn't deal with that. So
She used to teach like that, with classes full of different levels.
Who is used to that?
Like teachers, I don't remember exact dates, but there was a time when classes were just filled with different grades.
Yeah, mixed classes.
That's right, yeah, and the older students were recruited to help the younger students sometimes. That was very organic and natural. I guess by the time of the Great Depression, that had stopped and there were big classes, especially in the big towns. Okay. I think the big problem there was also that all the smart kids would have to slow down, dumb down, and let the teacher teach the same lesson that would work for even the least advanced student, which means everyone slows down to the slowest student. Slowest is not quite the right word, but it's a polite word. So that's not really good for stimulating talented advanced students. It doesn't promote or permit diversity, and it's a kind of dumbing down of the student population by design.
The more they raise critical thinkers, the more children will be more open to thinking deeper about the society that they're living in, and I don't think that's what the education system wants.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, Sasha just said what I wanted to say.
I don't think, what was the teacher doing in that class? Clearly, we could do a whole show on just the education. There's another teacher in part 2. And not by coincidence, the author's criticism of the education system is rarely discussed in classrooms, not ever to my knowledge. It's probably instinctively overlooked, that aspect, and might make the teachers uncomfortable. Number 6, Arthur Radley goes into isolation, quarantined to avoid society, not to avoid a disease. What is the author's message? Go for it, Ryan.
People don't need society to stay alive. Well, that sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, well, he does have his family there.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't need to Hmm.
Does he choose to go into isolation, or was he told to?
I think the book indicates that it's his father who chose to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, because of some myth about he stabbing someone.
Well, that evolved after the isolation. Before that, the boys, we should talk about that a little bit, perhaps. Do you remember why Boo Radley was arrested along with his other, I think, teenage friends? It's in chapter 1. They went to a cinema in another town, and they drove a car backwards in the town square. They shouted curses or foul language according to the local police or beadle, I'm not sure what he was called. And when he tried to arrest those boys, they locked him in an outhouse.
Okay.
So for these misdemeanors, they went to trial and the judge sentenced them to some industrial school.
And then Boo Radley didn't want to go.
Yeah, Boo Radley's father somehow manipulated the justice system, just told the judge, I'll take care of this boy. That's kind of corrupt, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't need to ask what is the author hinting at concerning the American justice system. Some people get privileges.
Arthur Radley was white, right?
Correct?
Yeah, so they were able to, I guess technically the kids committed a crime, so they were able to manipulate the justice system, but when we knew that other man was the guy who Atticus was defending, he's innocent, but he still gets locked up and in the end killed.
Yeah, good connection. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, for white people, and probably not any white person, but persons with some wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Quarantined. He's quarantined to avoid society. A little later in the book, or quite a bit later, I think it's Jem who remarks, I know now why Arthur Radley decided to stay in his house. Anyone remember?
No, unfortunately.
Okay, it might be the one time that Jem was right about anything. He said, the world is such an awful place. He just didn't want to be part of it. And so society is the disease. Society is the virus, not the germ. We are the problem, not the germs. Anyone here with a doctor's degree?
Nope.
Nope. Yeah, my own research has confirmed that these viruses are already part of us, with us all the time, and we don't really suffer from them until something goes wrong in our environment and consequently in our bodies, or perhaps it's what we eat, what we put inside of ourselves that weakens us and causes a flare-up of these viruses or bacteria, whatever it is we're suffering from.
What if we were never meant to live in this world?
You mean on this planet or this 21st century high-tech global economy?
Yeah, just more this time, both the time and planet.
Well, I like to think this is a good planet, or could be, for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely not built to be living in this century, though, the way that electronics and everything affects people.
Yeah, I strongly agree. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, I hear how people like trying to make the world a better place and like save the environment, but maybe we were just being alive, just making the situation worse.
Just by being alive.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I think we have a very, what's the word? Beneficial potential on this planet, or benevolent potential. In the most basic sense, like other animals, we are here to work in harmony with plants. We produce carbon dioxide. The plants need carbon dioxide. The plants produce oxygen. We need oxygen. It's a perfect union.
Humans just become too greedy.
Yeah. And we're even capable of, like, we're the one species who can intentionally create green spaces and promote plant growth and you know, good ecosystems. Presently, we're not doing that.
Yep.
But we could, and I think that would be very healthy and fun. And in fact, gardening is a big theme in this. It's an important theme in this novel. We might discuss that on Wednesday or Friday. All right, I feel like I'm talking a bit too much. 7, parallel. The community concocts awful, fearful, paranoid lies about young Arthur Radley. Any parallels to our present situation?
Well, people are making like awful assumptions about the virus that's going on right now.
Yes, yes. Yeah, you're using a polite word, assumptions. It's good. I would call them outright lies in many cases. Any other parallels or insights?
They're just pretty quick to just believe exactly what they're being told.
Yeah, and you know, concocting fear-driven, fear-based gossip about this poor young man. All right, number 9, schools teach children to discriminate. Ever hear of ageism and classism in quotation marks, a different kind of classism? How does this influence Scout and Gem? You might have to, I hope you had time to review this. Is Gem excited that his sister is going to join him in school?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he isn't excited.
No, he wants her to stay away, I believe. Right, they grow apart. How is school to blame for that?
School separates the different ages into grades.
Right. Yeah, Sasha, go ahead.
Not by intelligence or other factors.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they need to be separated for any reason.
Yeah.
Sasha, you mentioned the earlier education environment and model when children of all ages were in the same classroom. So that would have been a little healthier, I think, more natural.
Yeah, they're definitely taught right now that, like, during this book, that like the different ages can't really collaborate, like that their mentality and how much knowledge that they have can't compare to each other, even though sometimes people can be ahead and smarter. Age doesn't really have an effect on that.
Right. Classism, ageism, it's the same thing, I guess. Different ages and different classes. Some of our schools still separate boys from girls, and there's some research suggesting that helps education. I don't know. I'm sure it would help education also if you separated every child. Then they couldn't talk, be distracted by each other. But is that the direction we want to take? Well, I think, in a way, that's where we are now.
Mhm.
Do you find yourself better able to study, Ryan?
No, just same. No.
You were doing fine before.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your classes were civilized.
Yeah.
Okay, you're in a good school then, I suppose. Sasha?
Yeah, I guess.
I think it's always the same, but what I think is like you're saying, like separating students, I think school systems, education systems focus too much that like we always finish our year with an exam and a final project that has to be done alone, and they focus that like our final mark always has to be based off of what you can do alone, even though in real life, like we're always collaborating, whether you're at work every day, like we're always helping each other, we're always communicating. So why does our final mark or our education system focus on an individual child's like capabilities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we should get group marks. The whole class gets 1 mark.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Number 10, modern culture promotes sexual discrimination by creating false differences. As a result, Dill and Jem exclude Scout in the 2nd or 3rd summer together. Is that continuing today?
Yeah, it definitely is. Just in general, I feel like even like sometimes like with friend groups, it's always very like gender separated.
Yeah.
And I think when friend groups don't follow that, people consider it strange.
Right, especially around the age of 10 or 11 or maybe younger. I think boys might look at girls as another species, and girls might look at boys as another species.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of natural because you like, even though we're all humans, you just don't know, like at a younger age, you don't know how to interact with them, and you prefer to stick to your own gender group, boys with boys, girls with girls.
Right. It might look natural. I'm not convinced it is. I think it might be the result of our society, like promoting things like blue for boys, pink for girls, long hair for girls, short hair for boys, makeup for girls, no makeup for boys. You're just turning them into different creatures.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a child's born with the instinct to recognize someone as a boy or a girl. It's just what we're taught.
Absolutely.
Not like a girl can't handle what a boy can handle or the other way around. It's all taught to us.
Right. There are some biological differences, obviously, but
yeah,
they shouldn't impact interaction, friendships, relationships. Last one. Dill, he's a neglected child. Parents spend little time with their children, especially his parents, I guess. And nowadays, all parents, I think I read that parents are spending something like an hour or 2 of quality time a week in America with their children. And what does quality time even mean? Does it mean going shopping together?
or like watching a movie together, that's still not really quality time. You're not connecting.
Correct.
Yeah, no interaction.
Very little. I was going to say, Dill seeks refuge in the Finch household. He does not go to an orphanage, and Atticus does not involve the police. What is the author's message?
Orphanages are not the place to go to. That the system that's set up for orphanages is not right. It's probably not safe.
Yeah, and we should learn to take care of ourselves and not rely on governments to establish orphanages. foster family system, which is a little better than an orphanage. Communities should take care of themselves. Unfortunately, Dill had to travel from one community by train to the Finch's town, Macomb. But I think the message is clear. Yeah, this is a better solution than orphanages would offer.
In addition to Atticus not involving the police, I mean, he's involved with the law technically, being a lawyer, so he knows rules like that, but he still doesn't. If he involved the police, then Dill would probably be sent to an orphanage or sent back home, and Atticus doesn't do that.
Right. Yeah, he's bending the law a bit, or possibly breaking the law.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Ryan? What does that tell us about the author's opinion of governments, police?
I guess that the law is like only a part of the government. So maybe the author is suggesting that the government isn't necessary for us to survive.
Yeah, we can take care of each other ourselves, and we should. If we don't, stuff like this happens, right? We all get treated like kindergartners and told to stay home in our homes and wear little diapers on our faces. What else did I want to say? I think this connects nicely to Wednesday's topic when I want to discuss the anti-capitalist, anti-government heroes and messages in this novel. Last question, what useful message can we learn from To Kill a Mockingbird? Can it help us survive the imminent or the already begun Greater Depression?
I think it's like To Kill a Mockingbird's definitely promoting like anarchy and just supporting each other and not following rules all the time and not following what everyone tells us. So like, for example, right now, like the media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they're completely tuned out of the media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the book suggests that we should have more freedom. Children should be allowed to explore more, and parents shouldn't control them as much.
Right. I think that's a good note to end with.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have some final thoughts.
No, I agreed with all that.
Yeah, that went very well. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. Sorry I didn't introduce the two of you at the start.
That's okay.
My visiting scholars. And we'll do this again, or I will. Until then, good night, everyone. And stay healthy.
You too.
Of course.